Hey y'all, welcome to episode 1 of Overcompensated, the podcast for people who are ready to get rich in compensation and richer in life. My name is Alexis Matthews, also known as the Millennial Manager, and I will be your host of this podcast. And the reason I created Overcompensated is to really help people who want to be high achieving in their professional careers in whatever industry that is, but also finding balance and making sure that their lives are feeling holistically fulfilled. So I am currently a leader in the tech industry. I work in tech sales. I've been a career coach for the last decade. I've helped place over 100 people in high earning potential roles. I'm a wellness advocate, yoga instructor, and also the founder of Molded Media. And this podcast is really something that I wish existed years ago because burnout was never a part of my plan. But when you take on so many different things in your life, you just realize that all of those, priorities and tasks can pile up. And when you want to be high achieving, you need to know how to reconcile that with balance and making sure that you're actually able to enjoy the life that you've created for yourself, to be able to enjoy the process and really fall in love with every aspect of your life, not just your title or your paycheck. I think that a lot of people, when they're experiencing promotions and accolades and moving up the ladder, they can be experiencing this pressure where they think that it's fine. But in my opinion, we've lost the plot. So overcompensated is how we're taking back control of our lives. So let's go back to the beginning. I'm originally from DC. I grew up in a household where education and really focusing on your studies was highly prioritized. So I was always very nerdy, a bookworm, and then I was able to, go on to study at the University of Chicago. I studied comparative human development. It was an interdisciplinary social sciences major, combining sociology, psychology, anthropology, all of the things that I was really interested in learning about. I loved reading and I loved writing. I would, constantly be writing, 50-page essays on all of these topics that I found to be like so interesting about just humanity, the human experience, how different, backgrounds and your socioeconomic status and, growing up in different countries just impacted the ability to like live your life and impacted what your life was going to look like. So I was so passionate about that. I thought I was going to go get a PhD and study. I was living in Cape Town. I was doing research on my thesis, and ultimately when I was about to graduate, I just realized that I wanted to go to something that was more corporate, more stable, where I could, just make more money, but I really didn't know how to do so. I didn't have tools. I didn't have resources. I didn't have people, connecting me with certain places. Like my mom was a doctor, my dad was a lawyer. But I was really the first generation person to go into tech in my family. But I knew that tech was really going to be the future, and it's something that I really wanted to align myself to. So I started out in an SDR role, where I was working for a legal services company, connecting people with attorneys to place on projects. And then I ended up, moving up in my career. I became an account executive. I went to work at LinkedIn, which was fantastic. I ended up helping to co-found an organization to get more minorities into the tech industry. So people from underrepresented and untraditional backgrounds, helping them really pave their way to get, these high earning potential 6-figure roles. And actually, funny enough, there's going to be some people that I helped get their first role in tech. I helped them get their first role in tech, and they're going to be speaking on the podcast about how they were able to, go from an Amazon truck driver to literally a senior account executive. And it is just so incredible and inspiring to see. But then what I was realizing especially when COVID hit, there were so many individuals who wanted more out of their careers and wanted to make so much progress in their careers. And it was honestly really difficult for a time during COVID. I know that we're in one of the hardest, job markets right now, but actually at the beginning of COVID, the economy was contracting. There was a lot of uncertainty. And so my entire goal was figuring out, okay, how can I give back to individuals? How can I educate people on how to meaningfully progress their careers in an environment that is, arguably pretty challenging right now. And that is what, led me to this passion of coaching and developing others and using what I've learned to share with other people. So I did a ton of one-on-one career coaching, and just unfortunately with me and my bandwidth and my, full-time job, it just didn't scale. And I realized that I felt the need to hustle and, drive myself into the ground basically 24/7. And luckily I have, amazing professionals. I've got a fantastic therapist, and she would always tell me like pressure breaks pipes. And I was always the kind of person to put myself under a ton of pressure because I wanted to always, be moving up and succeeding. But I realized that when I was doing that, I was actually forsaking enjoying my life and that level of like traditional success and climbing the ladder. I mean, I was the person who was like, I want to be a VP before 30. And in your head, that sounds great. That sounds like, oh my God, I'm motivated, I'm driven, I'm working towards this plan. But in reality, that's really hard. It's a grind. It can burn you out. And of course you can do it. But is that really the goal? And I realized for me, like maybe that actually isn't the goal, because I love a life where I feel balanced. I love the ability to, enjoy time with my family, my friends, spend time with my dog, travel, versus just constantly like working to climb the corporate ladder. And I saw this in a lot of people's, career conversations that I was having with people. I mean, what I was working with a lot of individuals who wanted to, break into an industry because they wanted financial freedom to be able to live their lives in a way that, resonated with them and was able to provide them with meaning. And a lot of what we've, been kind of conditioned to think is like, no, you grind, you go, not necessarily regardless of meaning, but that shouldn't really be the number one priority. And I just realized that we needed to make a shift in how we think about our careers. I experienced burnout in my, career. I felt like I had a lot of conflicting perspectives, where there were individuals in my, network and my family who were constantly praising me for all of the incredible things that I was, doing and being able to speak at conferences, and exceeding quotas, and, your W-2 looks fantastic. But then on the other end, I had people, in my life who I saw they just had way more balance and they just honestly seemed way happier. And then when I started focusing on what makes me feel the most happy and fulfilled versus like what are other people's perceptions of me or what are other people's perceptions of what I'm doing, I started to feel way more connected to myself. So that's why I named this podcast Overcompensated. And overcompensated, obviously at face value, when you're overcompensating for something, you're doing too much to prove to other people that you're good or effective or worthy of praise and accolades and things like that. You overcompensate by giving too much of your emotional, physical, mental, spiritual resources to something. And I was overcompensating because I didn't want to fall behind. I didn't want to be the person who was stagnant in their career in their 20s. You think that you have all of this momentum and it's limited, but a lot of times you have to reframe, your actual growth mindset and know that like, no, your career is very long and you're always going to have opportunities. And so now when I think of flipping the kind of definition of overcompensated, I want to think about how can you get overcompensated in life? Like how can you get richness from your job, from your life, from your experiences? Like how can you really be overcompensated in every single way, like exceeding your paycheck, getting richer in your, getting richer in experiences, all of those types of things I feel like really resonate with me. And I'm hoping they, resonate with other people. That's where the name came from. It's not just about the money. It's about the cost of success and really what it takes to redefine success on your own terms. And that's why I really focus on balance, what balance means to me. And I realized that like balance is pretty hard to achieve without help, especially in the way that our current corporate structure is set up. A lot of times people want you to give your all to your job or to your career, but if that doesn't feel authentic to you, if that doesn't make you feel balanced, then you need to figure out ways to kind of like set those boundaries and really turn inwards and focus on what does success mean to me? What does success look like to me? And when you can ask yourself those questions and feel authentic about the way you're answering them and whether or not you're answering them based on what other people are going to, perceive of your ambition and drive, but really like what most resonates with you, I feel like that is the reason I want to bring on so many talented, successful people into this podcast, because I've had conversations with some of the most successful people and none of them have forsaken their life, their quality of life, and their balance for their careers, because that's just not the goal anymore, to be honest. This podcast is for everybody who wants to be high achieving but wants balance. It's for, women who are in corporate careers. I mean, I'm a woman in tech, but I also bring on people who are in more creative fields like interior design, people who are in more entrepreneurial fields if they're starting their own business or, running a real estate kind of business. It's for people who want to career pivot. I mean, we talk a lot about dealing with the realities of the labor market, dealing with unemployment, dealing with job loss, dealing with layoffs. I mean, as someone in the tech industry, I've seen all of these things happen at really, really high rates over the past, decade that I've been working in tech. And I want to give people resources and kind of like a guideline, a North Star for how to navigate some of the most challenging periods of rebuilding that you might ever experience in your career. But, I hope that listeners will walk away with, feeling inspired, but also having really tangible tactics and steps to do whatever it is they want to do. That's why I want to have people of, various backgrounds so you can get exposure to as many different industries, as you might want. And that's what I wanted. Like when I was graduating, I wanted to know that I had options. I didn't want to feel limited or just siloed into one specific area. I mean, that's why I did such an interdisciplinary major in college. It's because I wanted to have exposure to all of these different types of topics and ways of thinking, because that I think is what gives you freedom. Freedom is having choice. It's not being kind of pigeonholed into one area. Overall, like I started Overcompensated, but it came from Molded Media, which is my career media company. And I founded that because I found that when I was doing one-on-one individual high-touch career coaching, I was only able to impact a small group of people's careers. Like obviously when we ran Us in Technology and we had a team of 10 people who were able to like help lead and coach, that was fantastic. But when I kind of tried to break off and do something similar like on my own, I don't have that much time to give to one-on-one coaching, but I'm constantly getting people in my, LinkedIn messages and DMs just asking me for advice, like asking me for resume advice, asking me how to, revamp their LinkedIn, asking me for networking tips, asking me, how can I break into tech with no experience? And instead of answering, all of those questions one off to the best of my ability, I wanted to create a, media company for people who are invested in growing their careers, but still in growing those careers with balance. So we're gonna have weekly interview style episodes with high performing guests. I am so excited for our lineup. And we're gonna talk about a wide range of topics, anywhere from, burnout to layoffs, to leadership, to mindset, to money, to just growing in every way, shape, and form. And if you have, thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, or, anything that you want us to really dig into on the podcast, please feel free to reach out, send me a DM. I would love to talk about things that are really going to resonate with the community. But I'm going to be constantly looking at how people actually make sustainable success work. When I sit down with these incredible guests, high performing women and men and thought leaders and creatives and coaches, they're going to be talking about their careers and how they've made their success achievable but sustainable, and how they've been able to live a rich life in and out of just their job. But when we talk about burnout, we'll talk about balance. When we talk about ambition, we'll talk about money, we'll talk about personal branding. And one of my favorite things is AI tools. How are people leveraging AI? Obviously, there's people who are, fearful of how AI is going to show up in their jobs. But there's also people who are excited to embrace it. And I, for one, am someone who's very excited to embrace AI for all of the benefits that it has, while being still mindful that we need to, be conscious about the potential negative implications. So we're going to talk about all of it, honestly. But this is not just a highlight reel. It's really going to be the human side of success and what building success looks like. And also every month I'm going to drop a solo episode just like this one that's going to be something more raw and personal and real time, whether it's what I'm learning as a manager in terms of how to grow my team to their success, if it's, building a brand with literally $0, or navigating growing pains in all areas of life while still staying grounded. You'll hear from me. So just think of it as a little check-in, and I'll share what I'm learning with you so y'all know it's raw, it's authentic, it's real, and it's here to help you. So I am so excited for where this journey can potentially take me and hopefully take some of the listeners of this show. I really want to thank you all for showing up for episode 1. If you've made it this far, I truly, truly appreciate it, because launching a podcast, it's pretty vulnerable. It's something that's definitely a new experience for me, but it is so exciting because my entire goal is to share my lessons and learnings with other people so they can identify ways to create, fulfillment and find meaning in their lives in and out of just their job. So if you loved this, please hit follow and share it with a friend who might need it. You can send me a DM on what landed. My LinkedIn is Alexis Matthews. You can also find me at Molded Media. My TikTok is at Millennial Manager. So please, I cannot wait to hear the feedback that y'all have. Next week, I'm dropping another episode with someone that I cannot wait for y'all to tune into. It's going to be a really good one. So let's get overcompensated together. Let's get rich in compensation and richer in life, and we will talk soon.